We're talking about preparing your data for analysis today. And this is always the part of analysis where we spend a lot of our time just getting the data in the right format that we want to have to be able to do our final analysis within there. So I've got a case study for us to walk through today. And in talking about, we're preparing it for the final outcome, I thought I'd show you at the beginning what we're trying to create here today with our messy data. This is looking at some measurements across different treatments. So I want to create a graph builder in JMP that shows me between the beginning month of April and the ending month of June, between treatment A and the control, what that looks like. And then I also want to create a tabulate as well. So this is what we're trying to accomplish by the end of today's session. But let's talk about the data that needs to go in to create these types of outputs that we want to look at. And so we've already got the data into JMP as JMP data tables, and we're going to start with it as JMP data tables. There are some masterings if you have questions on importing data into JMP. But to give you a little intro to the tables, we've got 3 different tables we're going to start with where our data has been collected. On the left-hand side, I've got table 1 and table 2, and these are the measurement results for the April and May in the study. Table 1 has the morning results, and then some afternoon results were also collected in a different table, so that's going to be table 2. And then by the time we got to June on the right-hand side, we collected all of June's results in one data table in morning and afternoon in slightly a different format. So we'll look at how we can combine these data together with slightly different formats within them. And the one thing I like to think of when I'm thinking of preparing my data is what is the goal in mind that we're trying to achieve, whether that's a graph, a summary table, or an analysis that we're trying to do. So we showed that graph and summary table that we're trying to create at the beginning. And I think of what columns do I want in my final data table. So I know I want information on the measurements, the treatments, what months those are, and then what time of day those were recorded at. But I also want to pull out a subset of the data. So instead of the 4 treatments that are in the original data, I only want to look at 2 treatments. I'm only interested in treatment A and the control. And instead of all 3 months that are in the original data sets, I only want to look at the beginning and the end months. So just 2 months of April and June. So I know which columns I want in my final data table and that I'm going to want to look at a subset of that original data. So here's a preview of our actions or our workflow that we're going to go through today and the preparing data steps we're going to take a look at to get to our final data table. So we'll start with joining tables. We're going to talking about column attributes like modeling types and how to standardize those attributes. We'll also talk about stacking and concatenating tables, how to break up a column into 2 separate tables using text to columns or create a new column using formula columns within there. A little bit of recoding. Value ordering is a super helpful column property in JMP. And then we talked about when you needed to get a subset of the data. So only 2 treatments and 2 months. And we're going to use a function in JMP called hide and exclude to use the data filter within there. So that's your preview of where we're going. But we're going to start getting in and preparing this data. So like I said, we've got our data sets already started off as JMP data tables. And what I've got on the screen right now is we're going to look at April and May's data. First, we've got the morning data set up here on the top. And then in a different JMP data table, I've got open the afternoon data for April and May. And I want to combine these 2 data sets together. And they have different columns that I want to add. So I want a data set that has ID, treatment, my 2 morning measurements, and my 2 afternoon measurements, all in the same data table. And these data have a column that's in common that we can match on. So there's an ID column between each of these 2 different data sets. And that's what we're going to match up so that we get the right morning measurement with the right afternoon measurement on a row of data within there. And these functions are going to be found underneath the tables menu within JMP. And we're going to come down to join. I like looking at the little symbols next to the menu options when I'm looking at them within JMP. And so that little symbols, we're adding columns to a data table. So we're going to join within there. So this is my dialog for joining my different tables together. I clicked on it on the morning data set. So that's what it says, join morning with. And then I've got the 3 data sets that I've got open in JMP listed down here below. So whatever you've got open in JMP is going to show up down here below. I will open this up a little bit so we can see it a little bit better. And I want to join my morning data table with my afternoon data table within there. And these are the columns within both of those different data sets. And what I want to match on, what's the same between each of those data sets, is this ID column. So I'm going to hit match within there. Now something just popped up on the side of the screen, and I think most of us on the call from the poll are working with JMP 17, whether that's JMP Pro or regular 17. I'll make a note, everything I'm doing today is available in regular, or just JMP, the JMP product, as well as the JMP Pro product. But in 17, we got added this preview and all of these table functions, which is one of my favorite things, to see if I'm pulling in and it's joining how I want to join it in there together within there. So you'll see that as you're working with 17. If you have an earlier version of JMP, that preview won't show up for me. A common question with join is coming down here and this section that we're looking at within here, where it says main table and with table. And then I've got this inner join with the Venn diagram highlighted with that yellow spot highlighted in the middle within there. So what that's telling me is that my main table is going to be, if I scroll back up, it's whatever's listed under here. What table did I click on first? And that's going to be my morning data table. And so that's going to be my main within there. And then my with table is whatever I clicked on down in this dialog box. So that's going to be the blue highlighted one, afternoon, within there. And right now we're doing an inner join, which just means everything that matches between those ID numbers, we're going to have in our final join. In our case, all the ID numbers match between the 2 different data sets. So that works for us. If I had more ID numbers in one data table than the other, you do have the option to include non-matches here, and you can just check those boxes within there. One thing I saw on that preview is I'm getting like treatment of morning, an ID of morning. And if I were to scroll over in that preview, I'd see ID of afternoon and treatment of afternoon. And I don't need my ID and my treatment column to be double shown within there. So I don't need 4 of those columns. I just need the 2. So there's a handy options down here in the middle of the screen, and it's merge same column names within there. So if you click on that, now I see in that preview that I just have an ID column and just have a treatment column within there. And it's telling me that they match between both of the data sets. That's what this match flag is right here. So we could take that on or off, that match flag. And I can use that merge same column names because if I look at the columns within here, ID and treatment are called the same thing within here as ID and treatment within there. I'm going to name this output table, and we'll click this, say this is our join of April and May. Before I click OK, there's a handy thing, especially if you don't have the preview in the latest version of JMP, to keep the dialog open, and that's down here in the lower left-hand corner. So what that would let me do is I can click apply, but that dialog's still open. I get the join, but if I wanted to come in and make any more changes, I still have that dialog open, and I could make any changes or fix within there. So we don't need to make any changes, so I'll just close out of that join. And let's minimize those original data tables. And now I've just got my join data table that combines ID and treatment for morning and afternoon measurements within there that we've got. One thing with any new data table that I've got within JMP, we have the little header graphs at the top. And I like looking at these to see what's in my data set and if I need to change any of my data types within there. So I'm seeing for this morning measurement, I've got a histogram of data that the lowest measurement, my minimum is 188, and my maximum is 291 within there. And it looks like ID columns also showing as a histogram. And that's because if we look on the left-hand side here, it's got a blue triangle next to it. So anything that has a blue triangle next to it, JMP is treating as continuous data. And that would be something we would take a min, a mean or an average or a median and a max or a sum of. And I don't really need an average of my ID numbers within there. So I'm going to right click and change this from continuous data to nominal. And then that switches my graph and that header graph to a frequency chart within there. Now, the other thing that's going on is these are all measurement columns, but right now they're showing us frequencies for some of these. And they have that red bar graph that tells me that that's nominal data within JMP. And I want to know what my average measurement is for the morning. I don't want to know how many times we recorded 276 as a measurement. And I already see what's going on, why JMP is treating it that way. And it's because it looks like when we recorded the data, we put an NA when we weren't able to record a value rather than leaving it blank within there. And so because there's alphanumeric character data in there, JMP's treating that whole column as categorical data within there. And I bet that's what's going on with my afternoon measurements as well. And if I were to scroll down, I could see there's an NA and there's another NA within there. So I want to change the type within here. And instead of clicking on each one, whether I've got 4 columns I need to change or 400, I don't want to click on each individual one that we've got within there. So we can highlight those columns that we want to change by just clicking on the top within there. So we've highlighted those 3 columns that we would like to change, and we're going to right click. And instead of going to column info to look at the attributes of just this particular column, we're going to come down and look at standardized attributes. And that's going to assign all of the same properties to all of the columns that I selected within here. So in our case, those are 3 columns that were selected.